Hey everyone, Cynthia is here, of course, and today on the show we're talking to our politicians, our leaders to actually encourage students to be involved in local politics in Bradford. And of course, in the studio with me today, I've got David Green. He is, of course, an alumni of the University of Bradford, and very interestingly, he was the president at some point in 1980. 1982. I was sitting in my mother's womb. David Green is the councillor of the Whipsy district, and of course, he is in the studio this afternoon chatting with us. I'm so happy that you're in the studio. How do you feel coming back to the uni?
It's always interesting to see the changes that have happened in terms of the buildings
Yes.
and the layout, but it's always an odd feeling. I've most probably been here more since I left university than I was when I was supposed to be here, but that's something you need to take up with me lecturers.
How was life living, growing up in Bradford for you?
Well, I didn't grow up in Bradford. I came up here from London. I was born and bred in London.
Mm,
I was working as a residential social worker in children's homes in North London, Tottenham, Haringey,
mm,
Wembley. Decided I wanted to get qualified as a social worker.
yes.
Applied to Bradford and got in. Uh,
Applied social science.
Applied social studies, which was I don't know whether it's changed its name since the social work course. Came to Bradford, uh, partly because of getting involved in politics,
Mm,
and partly because I then had a change of heart about my career. I didn't complete my degree. I became a sabbatical officer at the university and then in West Yorkshire area NUS, and then went on from there.
amazing. I mean, you've had a very, very good journey. We're talking before the show, and I was saying that, I mean, it's actually very interesting because you started politics very young. How can young people get involved in local politics in Bradford?
Well, two things. One is I did start in politics very, very young. I used to leaflet my local area when I was about 3 because my mum was involved in politics.
Three.
Yeah. So me and my sister would be sent up to put the leaflets through letterboxes, and my younger brother at the time, who was still in his pram,
Mm.
was covered in leaflets because it was a good way of carrying them around. Um, so I think I had a sort of family history of political activity.
Mm.
I do think, and it's for your listeners to judge, that the split between the university and the wider Bradford community
Mm.
is growing. I don't think it's as integrated as, and I may have rose tinted spectacles on here, but it's not as close as it was in my day. There was a lot of involvement by students, both in terms of the student union and individuals, with activities and issues in and around Bradford, um, with the trade union movement, with the
Mm.
council, with political parties of all hues,
Mm.
um, and I don't see that particularly at the moment, and I don't know whether that's a fault of the city, the
Oh,
university,
bless
or the students, if you can call it fault. But there's not that cross engagement between all those aspects of it.
sadly. I know that, of course, you had your in your manifesto. Did you have anything to do with students, or can you give us a detail like what really stood out for you in your manifesto?
In terms of the local elections,
Mm.
as I say, the area I represent is a mile up the road from here.
Mhm.
So I would be honest and say that there's not been a huge amount in our local manifesto
Mm.
regarding students, but there are particular student issues. Clearly, student finance is
Sure.
one. The way that the government over the last few years has been privatising the education, and I hold my hand up. some of the stuff that the Labour government of 97 to 2010 did also resulted in some of that. But I go back to what I said. If the issues that affect students affect young people, you know, are you going to have a job? Are you going to have somewhere to live that you want to live, that is of decent quality? Climate change, crime, those are all issues that actually affect young people more than most of the rest of the population. So whilst I can't point to anything in what I'm doing up in Wibsey that specifically relates to students, there is a lot that relates to young people and also the population in general, because I think sometimes we get too hung up on, is this about older people? Is this about younger people? Is this about middle-aged people? You know, I'm sure you haven't thought about it, and I've only just really started trying to get my head around where I am with it all. Is at some point you hope to get a pension.
Sure.
It's a long way away, and I never thought about it, but
eventually
what we as politicians and the state do today is going to affect where you're going to be in 30, 40 years' time.
Very true.
So you need to be aware of it, even if it's not something that is going to be topmost of your agenda.
But how can we engage students? How can we make sure that students know this?
Well, I think there's a number of things that you can look at. One is the student union.
Okay.
And again, I'm sounding like an old fogey, and many would argue that I am. But back in the day, we had a non-sabbatical officer whose main and only job was to go out and look to create those links with external bodies in the district.
Yes.
So that they would have links with, for instance, local trade union council.
Yes.
They would have links with Council for Voluntary Services. They would go out and speak to local politicians. You have 3 councillors around here.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever invited them
onto
Ramat, and whether they've come or not, I don't know. But, you know, making those political, both with a capital P and small p, is the university. The council has relationships and good relationships with the university, but I don't know that that gets reflected down to the student body and whether those links are there. And finally, because it's not an all one-way street, you know,
how are you've
got thousands of students here who, you know, many young people I talk to say, I'm not voting, I'm not interested in politics, blah. And when you talk to them, they are interested in politics. They might not be interested in Labour Party politics or Conservative politics or Liberal politics, but they have a political interest. It might be the Middle East.
Yes.
It might be employment. It might be education. It might be crime. That's all politics.
Yes.
But if you then move away from the political process, you're not going to influence it. So I'm not saying that everyone should join a political party. What I am saying is give your local councillors, give your local MPs your views, let them know what is concerning to you, but also do something yourself. I believe in activism. And I think, going back to what I said earlier, I think universities have become, and possibly university students, I'm not qualified to say, have become to look much more at what's going on internally rather than what's going on outside.
Why? Sorry to interrupt you. Why do you think this is so? And before now, was it different?
Yeah. I mean, we used to, as a student body, not tens of thousands, in fact, I only think there was about 5,000 students at Bradford University when I was here. So it wouldn't have been tens of thousands. But there always used to be a significant student presence at local political activities.
Why did it change? Do you know?
Some of it is down to student finance, I think.
Okay.
You know, if I was lucky, I got a grant.
Okay.
I still left with a massive overdraft, but I got a grant. But I think that if you are the person who knows that you're racking up significant student debt, you're going to be much more concentrated on getting your degree, getting the good,
Grades.
and you're going to be concentrating on that rather than looking externally, quite possibly. I think there's also something about there's been a general decline in political activity, be that voting, party membership of all political parties, trade union membership.
I agree.
There's a lot of people now who are getting much more involved in pressure groups like the climate change activists, Extinction Rebellion, some and sort of charitable works. And that's almost taken over on an individual basis from the party politics, that involvement. But I think the communication between the student body here and
the external body,
the bodies out there, be it the council or the health service or anything else, is not as good as it could be.
That's why, yeah. I totally agree with you. Whilst that is happening, there's still loads of